Hi, this is Myra with Boutique Paint. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm a little late saying that, but these days that is kind of life, huh? Um, I had a customer, a very, very good customer of mine, ask, can you do something with Saltwash? Show how to use it. And so that's what I'm going to do today. This is Saltwash. It's a paint additive, and it's made in the United States, which of course we love that. You can do all kinds of stuff with Saltwash, but I'm going to show you the basics of Saltwash, a couple of things that you can do with it besides just paint with it. It's just a powder, a very fine powder, and I'm going to use, here's my paint already, and I'm going to start with white. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to use one color, and then you're going to, with the Saltwash, and then you're going to paint over it, usually with the second color. So you want something that complements it nicely when you, well, you'll see when you start pulling it back. So I'm just adding a little bit, and it's basically a thickening agent for paint. And I usually try to go for the consistency of like peanut butter or maybe frosting. This is kind of a hard container to do it in, but that's what I had, so we will go with it. So I need a little bit more, and it does come with a little scooper. Mine is long gone. Probably used it for something else. Just, let's get a smidge more in there. I painted a fireplace. It's been a couple of years ago now. I did a little fake fireplace, faux fireplace, that I used fence boards to make for a display at the shop. And I brought it home and set it outside up against the fence. And as my son likes to say, temporary becomes permanent, and there it sits. And that was a couple years ago. And I painted it with Saltwash, and it's been sitting outside, and these are just regular fence boards, and they were a little bit wet actually when I made the fireplace. And there it sits outside in the winter, lots and lots of rain, harsh sun, and the paint is still on it. It is just, it helps harden the paint. Also, oh, I'm not getting this thick enough fast enough. But it does, yeah, it kind of hardens the paint. So it's hard to get it to come off. So that being said, if you're painting a piece of furniture, I'm just going to be painting a board today, but if you're painting furniture, that's one nice thing about it, is it sticks to the furniture. Yes, you can sand it off later, but if you're having a little bit of issue with paint sticking to a piece after you've cleaned it, of course, this is great stuff. Okay, so that's pretty good. So you want to take a chip brush, because once you use it on this, the brush is never the same. And you're just going to dab it in there. And I have not tried to wash these brushes out afterwards. You could try. I'm not trying to discourage you to do it again. I've usually, when I've done a furniture piece or a big piece, I've mangled it so much. Because you're doing a lot of this thumping, and it squishes up the bristles, and they're never quite the same. But if you keep using, you know, if you love Saltwash and you keep using it over and over again, it doesn't probably matter. The other thing you could do is wash it up and just kind of trim some of the bristles. So we're just pouncing. We're making peaks and valleys. And you can make this a little thicker. This is still a little on the thin side. the salt wash does go a long way. I feel it does. This is, I think, 8 ounces, give or take. Oh, it's in grams, so it's hard to know. I am going to just thicken this up a smidge more because I want it a little bit more highs and lows. And you can also, if you're painting a piece of furniture, on wet paint, just toss this on top and let it just kind of absorb as part of, just to give it texture. Boy, I'm spilling this stuff everywhere. All right, that looks closer to what I'm really wanting. Yeah, there we go. See, that's a lot thicker. If you don't want a whole bunch of super tall peaks and valleys, there's 2 ways to do it. You could do it with a little less of the salt wash in it. Or you can do the next step, which the reason why I have tape down the middle is because I wanted to do it 2 different ways, show you 2 different techniques here. And you can see those are really big now. They're definitely getting taller peaks there. I don't know why I'm trying to hold that up. Give myself a workout. All right. So what you want to do now is this needs to dry. You don't want it to dry all the way. You can let it dry all the way. I find it to be a lot harder to take it back once it's dried all the way. Because one of the steps is sanding it back a little bit so you get some of the color. I find that if you just have it still a little bit moist, this layer, you're going to find the sanding to be a lot easier. Because like I said, it does turn hard. So I'm going to set this aside right now because that needs to dry. And I'll show you real quick something else you can use salt wash for. And this is just my sample boards. And I'm not going to use glue on the stencil right now, just because I want to show you this really quickly. Let's see, I do need a trowel though. So I'll put a little bit of it on the trowel. And like I said, this isn't going to be perfect because it's not glued down, but you can use it to do raised stencils. And the nice thing about that is you can use, mix up whatever color you want. If you're going to use it for the raised stencils, you could use multicolors, mix up a couple different colors and then kind of feather it out. There we go. Set that aside. And then what you want to do is you want to raise it straight up. And there you go. And now you have a raised piece. And you can see here, this is why we use glue. It's because some of the product got under there. That's, depends on how detailed you want to be. If you're building up more layers on top of it, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're wanting to do, this in a color on top of like a dresser, then make sure you're using your glue. So after you've used salt wash with your stencil, make sure you either put it in some warm water or I wiped it down with a baby wipe because I don't have running water out here. And it got the majority of it off. It's good enough for right now. You can always, kind of carefully scrub it up if it stays, if you have to leave it on there for a little bit, but try to get it off as soon as you can. So I went ahead and used the blow dryer a little bit on this. And what starts happening, I don't know if you can really see it, but this side is still very shiny, and this side is becoming a little more matte. It doesn't, and you can see some of the moisture kind of coming up through it. So on this side, before it dries completely, I'm going to take the brush and I'm just going to go along and take down some of those really high spots. This side I'm going to leave with the tall peaks. And then I'm going to blow dry it a little bit more so that I can show you the paint on top. So I use the blow dryer, and I've never done it using the blow dryer, so I'll give you that disclaimer right now. So hopefully it didn't change anything. It's getting pretty close. One side note though, this is just raw wood. And so the difference between raw wood and say like a piece of furniture that has a finish on it, it's going to, let's get that out of the way so that it's not in the light. The furniture, because it has a finish on it, isn't going to dry quite as fast as raw wood. Raw wood is always going to soak the moisture up and go into the wood, and so it's seemingly going to dry faster. So now I'm just going to take my second color and I'm just going to paint it. And right now it looks a little bit like the old orange peel or popcorn ceilings. It's not attractive. And you're probably thinking, that's really ugly. What are you doing? But you got to trust the process. I'm going to get in there and and you don't have to get the second coat perfect because you are going to sand it back. But that being said, I do want to kind of get it in there just to show you. I'm going to try to get the whole thing covered, but I could leave it like that and it would be fine. Got the shakes today for some reason. I am a little chilly, but shouldn't be shaking that much. I had a procedure done. I had a kidney stone and had to have a stent put in. And so they told me not to, during that time period I had the stent, I couldn't lift things, I couldn't do certain things. And so it is amazing how fast your muscles, because of course I'm moving furniture, I'm moving pieces, lifting for construction all the time, but when you stop doing it, your muscles just go nope, and then you try to do normal everyday things and your body's rebelling. And I think that's what's happening here, is I just don't have any strength right now, which is really pathetic. All right, I'm gonna let that dry now, but once again, I'm not gonna dry it super well because I do want it to be easier to sand back. So before I go on, I wanted to show you this. This is a quick video I did just before Halloween, I believe. And this is Saltwash, just one color, and I dabbed it on with the paintbrush and then added dark wax, waxed it and then added dark wax just to give it, but it gives it texture. And you can do it with you know, a blue-green paint color, so it makes it kind of looks like sea glass also. And they also have a video, Saltwash has a video where they sprayed it on. I didn't have as much luck because my spray bottle kept getting plugged with the product, so I think that I did not dissolve it enough. So probably dissolve it in warm water and let it sit there and then really shake it up. So this feels like it's kind of damp. Well, part of it still is wet. I got corners over here, but it feels okay. So I'm going to start, and if not, then I will stop and blow dry it a little bit more. But you just take your sandpaper, and that is still a little too wet. So I'm going to dry this a little bit more. because otherwise we'll just make a goopy mess. So this is dry a little bit more, and this is my sample sandbag, and it is working now. So we'll hopefully, like I said, usually you would just let this dry on its own. I can still feel that that corner is still wet, a little too wet. If you can feel the moisture through your top coat, you want it, how do I describe this? So like this is, I can feel that it's pretty wet still. This is, this part is dry, but I'm hoping that the underneath isn't really dry yet. Since I had really thick peaks on this one, it's a little, chances are it's going to be a little bit wet under there still. Just sand it back. And this is actually probably a little bit drier than I want it to be, because I'm really having to work to sand it. Now you can use an electric sander, and I would suggest you do, because you do get an arm workout doing this. But you can see the white coming through. So because these had bigger chunks to it, and I did not wipe it back, you can see that some of these that are coming through are going to be bigger. I'll go over on this side. And the more you sand, the more of your undercolor you're going to have come through. So it kind of gives it that old-fashioned look, like the paint's been there for a long time and then somebody painted over and then it kind of got blistery or whatnot from age or maybe heat. I know when old paint is around heat, it does something kind of funky and kind of cool. But if you're doing a whole piece, definitely if you have an electric or a battery operated sander, use that. I have a couple different battery operated sanders, and they are awesome. Cordless is so convenient. And that way you can take it outside. You don't have to worry about a place to plug it in. And this honestly is a little drier than I wanted it to be, because it is really giving me a workout here. I was going to see if I had a scraper. I don't think I've got one in here where you could also just kind of scrape it back a little bit. I don't have one. Shoot. But you can get the gist of what this looks like. And like I said, the more you sand, the more you're going to get that secondary color coming through. Definitely gives it a cool look. And then when you go to wax it, if you just choose to wax it or put your clear coat on, and then you can use some dark wax, and it'll help pick up some of these cool bumps. Actually, we should do, let's do a little wax so you can see that. So before I wax it, I wanted to just point out, this is about a 120 sandpaper. This is an 80. And this definitely, far more aggressive, obviously. Definitely makes it easier to get some of this pulled back. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I've made a mess. This is why you want to do this outside. And I'm going to just take a paper towel and wipe this down. And then I'm going to try to get some of this powder off of where I'm working here. But there you can definitely see. That's the bigger clumps. This is smaller clumps, and then also wiped back a little bit with the paintbrush to kind of smooth those bumps off. But you can definitely see the difference. I'm gonna get this dust off. So, and then we're gonna get a wax brush here. That looks like a white wax brush, but I'll use. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of the clear wax on there. I'll just do one side of this. And I can grab my dark wax brush and some dark wax here. By the way, if you open up a DIY waxes, this poor thing, it's gone through it, but and you see this where it's a little white, it's okay. It's just separated a smidge, not a big deal. It actually will just kind of mix in there just fine, and you're okay. You can use your lid to kind of mix that around a little bit. It's a little much on that brush. Now remember, if you get too much on there and you go, oh, don't like that, after you've wiped it back, take a little bit more clear wax and you can wipe it back. You can get some of that color, but you can see that it's definitely giving it a very vintage, old look there with the dark wax. And you can go as heavy or as light as you want. I think I liked it a little bit more with the dark myself. So I'm going to put a little bit more on there again and not wipe it back quite as much. That's that board. I do want to show you real quick, since I have all this out, the technique I was talking about, where you just kind of toss some of the salt wash onto the board or a painted piece. So I'm just going to paint this board. And I learned this from, and I'm probably going to mangle her name, Nicola. She's out of Germany, and you can look her up, Nicola Art, and she does just incredible work. I've taken a couple of her classes, and she's just a phenomenal painter. Just kind of a little bit different look, definitely her own look. It's not neat and tidy. It is just kind of free-flowing, and she just does pretty stuff. But she teaches this with the salt wash, and she does this to the tops of some of her dressers or her pieces. So you got your, and she builds up layers and layers and layers of paint, and yeah, like I said, her technique is just fascinating. I'm trying to get my salt wash can back open. I forgot I was gonna do this. So I'm going to take, she just puts her hand in there and kind of scoops it out. I'm trying to find my stick again. I'm going to do it this way. And then what she will do, she'll take her spray bottle and you just spray it. And then you leave it alone. You don't mess with it at all. And it'll absorb into the paint, but it'll absorb the water. So it gives you kind of a organic texture on its own. And then you can do your waxing. You can do a little bit more painting. You can do painting and then spray water on it and kind of pull it back, the second layer of paint back a little bit. Just play with it, come up with your own techniques, and yeah, just, oops, that does not go on that. But it will definitely give a texture of its own. So that is Saltwash. If you have any questions about any of the products that I've shown you here today, you can go to our website at www.boutiquepaint.com, and thank you for joining me.